Hello everybody, welcome to Bad Big Games, where we talk about all things PlayStation and games. I'm your host Joseph, and today we're going to answer that one simple question: should you be buying a PSVR in 2019? So with all that said, with all that out of the way, Future Joe, start the show. So there's this question I get a lot, and I see it online. So many people ask, Joe, should I be buying a PlayStation VR? Is it worth it? Or am I gonna buy it, it's gonna collect dust, and I'm just gonna look like an asshole? Now, that's not an easy question to tackle, because PlayStation VR is, at least as of this video, a $299 investment just for the headset alone. So with that, I understand the concern. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to break it up into 4 parts. First, we're going to talk about the space and the misconception of how much space you actually need to play PlayStation VR. Then we're going to show off the headset. We're going to start off by its build quality, and then we're going to break it down by the specs, the software, and if PlayStation's actually going to support this thing down the road. So I'm going to tackle this thing like you know nothing, Jon Snow, about PlayStation VR at all, or just VR in general. So the first big misconception I hear a lot on the internet is that you need a living room in order to play PSVR, or just VR in general. You need a huge amount of space in order just to play a VR game. And although you do need space to play VR, it's not so much of this big extreme. For example, look at my room. The first thing you see is that it's a fucking disaster. And the second thing that you see is that it's a really small space. So what I do is that I make room. You see this huge desk? Well, I eliminate that huge desk by just pushing it over, and that's how much space you really need for PlayStation VR. So let's talk about the hardware, and let's start with the headset itself. So the first thing you notice when you put this thing on is it's actually extremely lightweight. Like, the build quality, it doesn't feel premium, but it doesn't feel cheap. It feels like a solid piece of tech. And when you put it on your noggin, which is really easy, you just literally, all you gotta do is hold this button down, bam, and then you put it on your big fat head. And I got a huge head, and it fits perfectly fine. It rests on your forehead, which makes it super comfortable. You'll see on the Vive or the Oculus, there's a whole bunch of little straps you put on, kind of like you're putting on goggles in science class. I've always not liked that design, never really dug it. With the PlayStation design, it fits you like a crown, and it feels relatively comfortable. And all you have to do once you have it on your head is just pull this little notch back, and it doesn't go anywhere. And then all you gotta do is just fit the visor the way you want it to. Slide it back and forth to have the screen however close or far you want. Now, if you're a glasses wearer, the PlayStation VR is actually pretty glass friendly because of these rubber panels. You can wear your glasses pretty well without the light seeping through. So that's one thing to consider as well. So when it comes to the build quality, it's super comfortable. Now, let's get to the specs. Now, when it comes to the specs, I have some things on screen straight from Sony themselves, and this is what you can expect with the latest model of PlayStation VR. All those digits aside, the main thing you need to take away from this is that it is one solid screen, 1080p OLED, bringing you back to the PlayStation Vita days. And it's kind of similar. It's like if you took a PlayStation Vita screen and threw it at your eyeballs. With that, though the Vita screen is super nice, when it comes to VR and you have the screen so close, you're going to get something called the screen door effect, which makes the image, when you get a certain proximity, certain close to it, and when it's shadows or a dark or just plain old black on screen, you're going to see the individual pixels. Especially when there's a high contrast on screen, you're going to see that the image could get a little blurry, like you're viewing it from a screen door. Now, is this a deal breaker? Not at all. It never breaks my immersion all too much. Only when I'm getting into a loading screen do I really noticeably notice it. But again, for a budget, a $200, $300 headset, that's not bad, considering that the Vive and the Oculus deal with it in ways of just putting 2 screens into your eyeballs at 4K resolution, so you have a denser pixel quality, so you don't get that screen door effect. That comes at the higher price. So again, you're walking in, this is the entry model into VR, and it does a comparable job. It also has 3D audio, which is actually really nice. The little earbuds that they give you to attach into the PSVR does a great job. But if you want your own headsets, you could use them as well, no problem at all. Now you might be saying, Joe, you're singing this thing's praises. Where does the hardware though go wrong? Oh, hello there. Yeah, the PlayStation Move controllers, they're an awesome technology. PlayStation Move in general, awesome technology. If this was 2008 and my president was still black. Now in modern day, these controllers, they're not bad, but if you're trying to play this in any type of situation that involves light, you can't. The camera doesn't know how to track the balls of light at the end of this controller if you have any light source within the proximity of the camera. So you have to make sure you turn off all the curtains, you turn off the curtains, whatever. You turn off your lights, you make sure it's dark in the room, or else again, the camera will not register the controllers. And that sucks. Also, these things are a bit inaccurate in terms of movement as well. You can find that in games like Beat Saber, where accuracy is key. These things kind of like taking a hammer when you're trying to be precise with something. So yeah, these things are passable, but they're not good. They're just mediocre at best. And they're gonna charge you, Sony, $99 for 2 of these. $99. That's why I always say stick with the $349 bundle, because at least you get these for technically $50 instead of $100. Totally overpriced. Also, cable management with the PlayStation VR, there's about 4 or 5 cables attached to the newest model, which makes cable management a bit of a pain in the ass. There's also a little converter box that converts the image that you have to deal with as well. I would take it out to show you, but I just had to deal with it, so I'm not going to do that. I'm being lazy. So at the end of the day, the build quality is fine. It's decent. It gets the job done. For something that is $300 to $350, it holds its own against the competitors, Oculus or Vive, and those headsets are remarkably more expensive. So I gotta give it up for PlayStation VR. It might not look the prettiest, but it gets the job done. So finally, let's talk about software. Let's talk about Sony support. Is Sony supporting the PSVR? Let's get that right out of the way. Yes, we're seeing them pour a ton of money into smaller studios to create awesome things. We saw it with Astrobot. We saw it in things like Resident Evil 7 VR. We saw it with games like Iron Man that's coming out later this year. You're gonna be Tony Stark. Okay, that's nuts. And when you're thinking software, what are the games that I can buy on this system? There's so many games that come to mind. I'm thinking of games like Tetris Effect. I'm thinking of games like Astrobot, Moss, Ghost Giant, Falcon Age, Beat Saber, which is a game that I've poured way more hours than I would like to admit into. I'm thinking of games like Rez, Wipeout, Farpoint, Resident Evil 7, like I just mentioned. I'm thinking games like Rez. There are so many great games to play in PlayStation VR that it's just a no-brainer. When it comes to the software, that's where PlayStation VR shines, because not only can it take the most popular games from the Vive or the Oculus in games like Beat Saber, but we also see Sony pouring their own efforts into making games like Deracine or making games like Astrobot, experiences you can only find in PlayStation VR. Astrobot, which is an incredible platformer. You're seeing developers create games unlike anything out there. When you're thinking of games like Ghost Giant, there is no way that game would have impacted me more if it wasn't in VR. The reason why that game speaks to me is because you are one of the characters. The reason why Beat Saber feels so great is because you are the game mechanic. The way that the VR thrusts you into not just the role of the hero, but just into the game world itself is unlike anything you can experience in gaming. That's why software-wise, it's a no-brainer. Go out there, buy a PSVR. The experiences are bar freaking none. They're amazing. You have some amazing indie developers making amazing content that's unlike anything you've ever seen before. And when it comes to the future, it's bright. Backwards compatibility when it comes to the PlayStation 5 is not just software, but it's hardware. So you don't have to worry, hey, is this thing going to be obsolete in a year and a half or whenever the PlayStation 5 comes out? No, don't worry. PlayStation 5 is going to be fine. It's going to be able to play PlayStation VR games, and will also be able to take the hardware in as well. You're able to play your old PSVR on your new PlayStation 5. So when it comes to the hardware side of things, absolutely. This thing is capable, it's comparable. When it comes to the software, that's where this game truly shines. Again, please, if I've sold you already, go out there, buy Ghost Giant, go out there, buy Astrobot, go buy Moss, and then go buy Beat Saber. Those 4 alone are worth the price of admission. PSVR, should you buy it? I hope I already sold you on it, because I walked in a skeptic and I came out a believer. I thought PSVR was going to be the dumbest thing ever, and then I tried VR for the first time and I just walked out changed. So with that said, with all that out of the way, go out there, buy your headset. It's worth it. If you like videos like these, well, please hit like, share, subscribe, because not only do we do Should You Buys, but we cover all things PlayStation, whether that's news, reviews, top 5s, impressions, rants, whatever the case may be, or The Trophy Room, a podcast made by the players for the players each and every Thursday on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, wherever there's an RSS feed, or here on YouTube. Go out there, listen to us. We're funny sometimes. So with all that said, with all that out of the way, everybody keep your wits about you and have a nice one.